All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be touching on the top preseason plays here for this Friday slate. Let's go ahead and get into it. So this is going to be a 3-game slate, and I almost am expecting to get a decent amount of kind of slate-changing news on this slate. We did get that. I'm recording this on Thursday while some of the games are going on. We did get that on this slate where Raheem Blackshear ended up being ruled out, which meant Mike Boone was kind of an easy play. And all the running back plays that were on, basically this Thursday slate kind of went as expected. A little bit unfortunate as I'm recording this. I did notice that Hendon Hooker got injured. Antone Green as well with Detroit got injured in that game as well. But seems like a pretty solid day for the most part. Hopefully we can do that again on Friday. Let's go ahead and do the game-by-game breakdown. And so looking at it, we got Miami versus Atlanta, and this is actually a pretty high-scoring game here. We see 38.5 is going to be the over and under for this game, which, again, a pretty high-scoring game, relatively speaking, for the preseason. We look at the injury report. Robert Burns, their fullback, going to be out, but they also are going to be without Rondale Moore as well, the Falcons. Depth chart-wise, we look at it in terms of quarterback. Kirk Cousins probably not going to play in this one, which does mean we're going to see a lot of Michael Penix. We actually got confirmation that we're going to see a lot of Michael Penix in this game. That's the quote. Now, they do have Taylor Heineke and Nathan Rourke there as well. Recently signed Nathan Rourke. They signed him this week. And so what does that mean for playing time? To me, I'm kind of assuming that Penix is going to play at least a half of football. And then you got Heineke probably playing in the third and then Rourke playing in the fourth. That is my expectation of what's going to occur. Now, running back wise, they are kind of thin there as well. How much is Bijan Robinson going to play? How much is Tyler Algier going to play? That's a big question. And so we kind of got to figure out which running back we should be targeting. Now, for what it's worth, typically speaking, the Atlanta beat reporters are terrible. And that's kind of where we get a decent amount of our information. Now, I try to go ahead and watch film on a lot of these players as well, ones that I haven't really seen, and really not seeing too much. I did like what I saw from Jace on film. He's someone that kind of has a good burst to him, a little bit smaller back. Don't mind him, though. Carlos Washington was actually someone that popped a decent amount last preseason as well. So you got Avery Williams, who's kind of trying to make the team by being a good enough back, but probably more special teams. If you're doing 150 lineups, you're probably just mixing and matching all three of those players. I wish I could give you an answer as to which one. If I had to choose, it'd be Washington. Like on paper, this should be a lot like the Thursday night slate where with the Patriots, we kind of knew we wanted to be targeting them, but there's a decent amount of confidence that I had in Kevin Harris and then also Terrell Jennings to have a good game. I don't have that same confidence with the Falcons running backs, even though I wish I could because they are going to be pretty thin. Receiver-wise as well, kind of a guessing game here as well. Unfortunately, you got Dylan Drummond, who was someone that played really well for the Lions last year in the preseason. Ray McLeod is there. Again, he's kind of trying to make the team via special teams. And then you just have a bunch of players that are kind of just guys. James Washington's a player that I always liked in Pittsburgh. He's someone that did produce in the preseason. But kind of betting on these veterans to go out and play well, I don't really exactly like doing that. And again, I didn't really see much from the rookies that much as well. And then that's kind of going to be the same for the tight ends as well. So we can just go ahead and jump into the Miami Dolphins. They're going to be a team that we want to target much more anyways. So we go ahead and look at the Miami Dolphins, their injury report. Now they are a little bit banged up, especially at the receiver position. It's not exactly showing up here, but they're pretty banged up. It's kind of funny, the difference between camp news and like newsworthy blurbs, if you will, for some of these players. But let's look at the receivers that they have. So looking at guys, Waddle probably not going to play in this one. OBJ not going to play in this one. Barrios probably not going to play in this one. As a comma as well, he's probably not going to play in this one. They don't show it, but he's banged up. Then they do have Washington, who's a little bit banged up as well. So much so that they need to bring in Mike Harley Jr., who was the former Cleveland Browns receiver. Kind of made a splash preseason news-wise for them, but I think who we're looking at, and I think it's a little bit more straightforward. Braylon Sanders was a guy that got a decent amount of hype for the Miami Dolphins last preseason. He's someone I can get a decent amount of exposure to again this preseason. I'm kind of okay with that. River Craycraft is decent. I don't think we want that much of Willie Snead. But you do have Malik Washington, who has been getting a decent amount of hype out of camp. Here's a play that he made in joint practices with the Atlanta Falcons as well. Kind of just a nice little catch and run there, but nothing much to it. It was more of a good throw from Mike White. What I like seeing from these kind of camp highlights that we're seeing here is that he does have a stride or two, a step or two on these DBs on these clips, and I think that's kind of telling of the speed that he has. And so for me, I do think I want to be targeting Malik Washington. I'm pretty okay with that. And then we go ahead and jump into the quarterbacks. Obviously, we're going to try to stack here. Tua Tagovailoa not expected to play in this one. And so that means that we're probably going to get some sort of split between Mike White and Skylar Thompson. Now, this is something that we got last preseason as well, kind of expecting them to get around 14 passing attempts total. Now, obviously, the game flow does matter as well. We might get a little bit more word on this, maybe if there's like a game plan for one to play a little bit more one game and one to play a little bit more another game. For now, I'm kind of just going with Skylar Thompson. It kind of seems like a guessing game there. I don't think there is a wrong choice there. You just kind of need to get lucky with a touchdown. And then running back wise, they are kind of deep at the running back position. I do want to call out Alec Ingold, fullback. We're not worried about him. But when we look at it, you got Mostert, who obviously is an older back, got a big workload last year. He's probably not going to get that much playing time. He did get a little bit of playing time last year in the preseason, but we're not expecting much. Devon Achane, with his kind of now injury history, if you will, how much work is he going to get in this game? I don't see him getting that much. At the same time, he probably still needs to get reps. He didn't play all that much last year. Jalen Wright has apparently been very impressive thus far in camp. He's obviously a player that can make a big play as well. So I really don't mind getting exposure to him. I don't know if he'd be someone I'd put in like a single entry type build. And then you got Ahmed there as well, who he is someone that they used a lot in the preseason last year. And that could be an approach that they go with again this year potentially, just given the fact that obviously they are acquiring running backs, the Dolphins are, because they're a little bit worried about the injury bug, right? They drafted a rookie running back last year and now this year as well. They actually have a really good rookie free agent running back from last year, Chris Brooks. So much so that I made a TikTok for him last year as well. This is some of the plays that he made last year in the preseason. Just a good, solid kind of foundation running back, I guess, if you will, where he just keeps his footing. And like, here's another play from him last year. Like, this guy is I think you could argue he's their best runner of the football. He might not be the fastest there. Like if you put him on Seattle during the Pete Carroll years, Pete Carroll would have loved him. He would have been Chris Carson for us. Like he is such a good runner. And now maybe that changed since his injury that he had last year. But I think I'm kind of willing to bet on him just being as good as he was last year. And if he is, he's going to be someone I really want to target. I'm kind of wondering if he is someone that could potentially find himself on a different squad. Like if he was on the Raiders, I think a lot of people would talk about him being a sleeper as like their RB1. Like that's how talented I think he is. Anyways, moving on. Tight end wise, again, they're not really showing it on the injury report, but per the beat reporters, they are a little bit banged up at the tight end position. They're actually going to be without Jonnu Smith and Durham Smythe, apparently, which leaves Julian Hill to get a decent amount of work, but then you also have Tanner Connor that could get some work as well. I think they're worth tossing in a little bit. Obviously, if you're going to be playing some of the quarterbacks, I think it's not a bad idea to create a rule to have one of those two if you're playing Mike White or Skylar Thompson. Defensively, I don't think we want to be targeting either of the defenses just because it is a high-scoring game. Let's go ahead and get into the next game. And guys, just real quickly going back to the Dolphins, they were kind of a more run-heavy team last year in the preseason. I think that was noteworthy, so I did want to toss that in there. Looking at the Texans versus the Steelers now, we did see the Texans last week in the Hall of Fame game, but at the same time, they did have a full quarter cut off, so that did kind of change maybe some of the film that they wanted to get on some of their players, if you will, some live looks at some of the players that they wanted to get. And so I do think that changes a little bit. Like you got Jawar Jordan. He's someone that, was slated to play the whole fourth quarter. What is that going to mean for him? Now, we did get word that the starters are going to play. The ones that are healthy are going to play for the Texans in this game. But then what does that mean for the rest of the playing time? I feel like that's a guessing game more so this time. And that does happen a lot with these teams that play in the Hall of Fame game where the playing time does become a little bit more difficult to predict in the next game and probably their third game as well, which for them obviously would be next week. Now we look at the injury report. They are still going to be without Joe Mixon. Teagan actually played last week. I don't know why he's still popping up on injury reports, but he is. Then you also have Diggs, who's expected to sit in this game. And then Brevin Jordan, the tight end, also expected to sit in this one. And so just looking at the tight end position for them, Cade Stover is actually someone that played pretty well last game, had 3 catches. Had a pretty good game. Maybe it was 3 targets, 2 catches. But anyways, was targeted a decent amount for a tight end. Like if we can just not take a 0 at the tight end position, I think that's what we want to be doing. So he is someone that I don't mind as a play. Looking at the receivers, honestly, I think I'd be fine going back to Xavier Hutchinson. He's obviously a player that did have a good game last week. Now, I don't think he's going to be a starter for them. So might as well just get him more playing time, right? Now, John Mechie was someone that was playing still in the third quarter, seemingly going to play into the fourth quarter as well. He's someone that probably will get a decent amount of playing time in this game. He's someone that didn't really produce last week, but again, it kind of makes sense for him to produce in this one. Tough to say he didn't produce when, again, probably would have got more playing time in the fourth quarter. That's going to be the same for the running back room as well. So the surprise that we got last week was that Cam Akers was active in that game, and Cam Akers was able to score a touchdown. I wouldn't say he looked explosive. I don't think anyone would say that, but he looked serviceable. And honestly, in the preseason where you don't want to get your starting running backs injured, they might just pound Cam Akers into the ground. I could potentially see that happening, but I do still want to get a look at Jawar Jordan, and I think they're going to want that as well. So I don't mind having some pieces of this running backfield, but we don't need to go too crazy. And then quarterback wise, I still think they're gonna split it a little bit more. And now with CJ Stroud expected to play at least a little bit in this game, no reason to really play any of them. So let's go ahead and jump into the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Steelers are somewhat relatively healthy-ish. The biggest one, I guess, is Romaine Wilson is out. Russell Wilson not going to play, but he's expected to be ready by week one, game one. But looking at it, they do have another quarterback again on this depth chart. Reese Plumlee, he was a very solid college football quarterback, and I'm excited to see him play. I hope he does play, but the expectation is going to be Justin Fields is going to start and play a few series, and then we're going to see some of Kyle Allen and then Plumlee. So again, I probably will be doing another live stream tomorrow. I want to get confirmation on the playing time. If Plumlee's going to be playing a full half, that's going to be extremely exciting to me. He's someone that can rush. He's someone that can kind of do it all. Hopefully he doesn't get a concussion like Hendon Hooker. I'm tilted by that in case you guys can't tell. My stack of the Lions got injured, and that's so super tilting. That hurt a bunch of Bills. Now, I didn't have a lot of Eric Gray who went off, but I had enough of him, and so that was a little bit tilting. Anyways, that is a concern, I would say, though, with those rushing type quarterbacks, those quarterbacks that can rush, and that's a slight concern with Plumlee. But anyways, honestly, if we get some Kyle Allen playing a full half, I'd be intrigued in that as well. So definitely something I want to pay attention to. But right now we don't have a firm kind of detailed approach as to what the playing time is going to be there. And same thing at the running back spot. We do want to be targeting the Pittsburgh Steelers running backs. They are a team that has a tendency to run the football a little bit. Actually, guys on the slate in terms of teams we want to be targeting, running backs, teams that kind of have a preseason workhorse, if you will. We do that a little bit with the Dolphins, a little bit with the Steelers occasionally, the Eagles a decent amount, pretty heavily, and then Baltimore as well. They're really notorious for it. So kind of a nice slate in that regard. But there is still some guessing. It doesn't really make sense for Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren to get a lot of work. They'll probably get a little bit. You got LaMichael Pirine in there. Jonathan Ward has looked good in the past. You have the Dallas running back and Shamklin. Whatever. He didn't look good in Dallas. You do have the rookie running back, Edwards, who for Georgia did produce. He's probably the one I'm most interested in. If someone's going to get 10 carries, I could see that being him. Receiver-wise, there's a strange thing that happens with the Pittsburgh Steelers receivers. It seems like every single preseason, one of their starters just goes off for the first two games. It's crazy, guys. It really is. We saw it last year with Calvin Austin and George Pickens, for that matter. Previous years, we have seen Deontay Johnson do it, Juju Smith-Schuster do it, James Washington do it. It's a notorious thing here with the Steelers. So I honestly might be putting a little bit into Calvin Austin to play, even though I'm only expecting him to play maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 series, not that many series. The starters are only expected to play a little bit, 2 series. And that's pretty typical for Mike Tomlin in the preseason. But I am a little bit interested in that because after that as well, it is a guessing game for the Steelers at the receiver spot. Now, I do think we have a decent kind of indication of Washington being someone that we might want to target because he is someone that kind of does need to break out, if you will. And everyone else is kind of blah, for lack of a better term. Michael Pruitt, we know he's more of a blocking tight end. Same thing with Matt as well. And then Connor Hayward is just kind of a nothing as well. So, yeah, Washington is someone that did have a lot of buzz around him kind of this time last year. Had an okay, I think, camp. So he'd be a tight end that I'd be happy to get to as well in the slate. But that kind of does it for Houston and Pittsburgh. Let's go ahead and jump into Philly versus Baltimore. Now, Philly versus Baltimore is actually kind of a lower scoring game, relatively speaking, 34.5. So we might actually want to just be targeting the defenses here. And again, these are two teams that do tend to try to run it a little bit more and kind of give us a workhorse running back, if you will. Let's kind of look at it here. Injury-wise, we don't have that much information. We did get confirmation, however, that Lamar Jackson is going to sit in this game, which means Josh Johnson is going to start in this game. And so I don't really know what the playing time is going to be. I think we're going to get about a quarter and a half of just all the quarterbacks. You got Devin Leary, who is a decent arm quarterback that I think we might be looking at, but it's strange that we haven't gotten some sort of like confirmation in terms of who it's going to be, because Baltimore typically will let us know who's the quarterback that we want to be targeting. We've seen it a bunch with them actually in the past. So the fact that we're not getting that information just yet is a little bit concerning. So maybe we get a little bit more of Josh Johnson than I would have expected. Now, I don't think we would expect a lot of Justice Hill. Derrick Henry's not going to play in this game. Obviously, Keaton Mitchell's out. So we do want to be getting some exposure. This is a case where I might actually be okay just playing 2 Baltimore Ravens running backs and kind of just trying to get lucky with whichever one it is, because Patrick Ricard is a fullback, so we're not worried about that. Chris Collier not getting a lot of hype out of camp. Owen Wright also not getting a lot of hype out of camp. Now, those are 2 players that are kind of expendable, and again, we have seen that with Harbaugh. He does that a decent amount, where if he thinks a player is not going to play in the regular season, he's actually going to get a lot of work in the preseason. But I do like Rasheen Alley. He is someone that if you guys play college football at all or did any props at all, he was always someone that really had an extremely high line and typically had some really good games. And so in terms of that, in terms of like his college production, I am excited to play him. And so he's probably going to be my first click. And then really between whoever we get more buzz on, I might just go with that other player. Now, maybe Owen Wright right now, but I don't know if I want to go into that too much. Receiver-wise, I think the most fascinating is that they got Malik Cunningham there. Obviously, the former quarterback for the Patriots came over to Baltimore to potentially play quarterback. He's playing receiver. Apparently, he hasn't been too bad. So I think that's kind of fun to note. I don't know if we exactly want to be targeting him in DFS. Tylan Wallace is someone that can make plays. Sean Ryan is someone that in previous camps got a decent amount of hype, but I think he's kind of fizzled out now. Yeah, Washington, who I think people are going to be maybe excited to play. It just really feels like a guessing game, and maybe just we go with the rookie receiver that people want to step up in Walker. Maybe we do that. And Rashad Bateman most likely not going to play in this game, but we do need to get that confirmation. I don't expect Agler to play that much. He's going to be the receiver number 3, so not too much there. And then tight end wise, Charlie Collier is someone that I decently like in this one in terms of like GPP winning upside. In terms of like not getting a lucky touchdown, I should say, he's a play that does make a lot of sense. Now they are kind of deep at the tight end spot, so that does concern me more so than previous years. You have Washington there, who is not terrible as well. But let's go ahead and jump into the Eagles. Now the Eagles do have a little bit of a quarterback battle on their hands. So I do wonder if Will Grier is ever going to play that much, because there is a QB2 battle going on. It's between Kenny Pickett and Tanner Mackey. Now, Tanner Mackey also had this going on with Marcus Mariota last year, and apparently he's really looked good in camp. And so, again, it is more of a guessing game as I'm recording this, more so than any of the previous slates that we've had. But I think he'd be the quarterback that I want to roll with the most, just because his playing time does seem to be the most secure, if we will. And then here, guys, again, Philly is a team that kind of subscribes to the let's just run the clock and get out of here with limited injuries. And so I don't know how much Will Shipley is going to play, given the fact that they're not carrying that many running backs. Now, I do think it's worth calling out, they actually do have Davis Price, the former San Francisco running back, that he could actually end up being the top scoring running back for the Eagles. I'm not exactly sure why he's not on the slate. And those Shipley and him seem to be in the battle for the RB3 spot. And so I still am kind of inclined to play Will Shipley. He's apparently looked good. I don't really want to mess with Nichols. I don't know much about Milton, to be honest with you. So I think Will Shipley is kind of a safe play to at least get some production. I don't know if he's going to be kind of that workhorse back that we sometimes see with the Eagles, though. Joseph Nada is a receiver last year that did pop in the preseason. He's kind of a bigger receiver. I could see him having a good game. Maybe it has the potential to score a touchdown. You got Brendan Covey, who, again, was someone that kind of popped last preseason for him. Not that much hype. John Ross has kind of been soaking up, I don't want to say the hype, but the beat writer's attention, if you will. And so, obviously, John Ross just kind of a fun signing, and is kind of a buzz signing. I don't know if we're expecting much from him. Apparently, he hasn't looked that good. Now, someone that has apparently looked kind of good is Johnny Wilson, who has the potential to be the slot receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. And so, he is someone that I do like in this game. I don't know if we need to go crazy with him, but he's someone I will be targeting. And Paris Campbell, if he sits, that does open up some playing time, but he was back at practice per reports, so I don't think we're too worried about that. Tight end wise, not that much there, so it is kind of a concentrated tight end slate. And so, again, I probably will be choosing between these two defenses. A lot of it is just trying to get lucky defensively. And obviously, you just don't want your quarterback or majority of your players going against your defense. So, I don't know. For this example, We know that the Ravens are going to start at least with some of their players, so let's go with the Ravens, I guess. But that's going to be all for this video, guys. Again, I probably will be doing a DFS and props betting live stream tomorrow. We'll be coming out with the props video in the morning at sometime tomorrow as well. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this coverage. If you did, make sure to give a like and subscribe. If you guys want access to the 9to5 lineup builder, which you can play in preseason, head on over to 9to5sports.com. That's available for just $10 a month. Take advantage of that. All right, thanks for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.